Yesterday, the 12th of June, Nigeria's 25th year as a democratic nation. Now, while some commended the progress made in our democracy, others raised concerns about the country's economic challenges. Here on Breakfast Central, we had a lineup of special content, notable guests, and experts who did justice to the conversation on Nigeria's democracy. We began the show with the President's Democracy Day address, which has since sparked numerous comments across the country. To discuss further on Nigeria's democracy, we are joined by legal practitioner Deji Adeyanju. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yesterday, we had everyone take a shot at the question asking what their thoughts were regarding Nigeria's democratic journey. So it's only fair that you also have your own shot. So what would you say is your take at where we are as a democratic nation? Would you say that we have made good progress from 1999 up until 2024?
Yes, sincerely speaking, we have not made much progress because in 25 years, much is expected, but alas, we have been battling, especially with the issue of democratization of the country. You know, the Nigerian police force, which was a creation of the colonial masters, have refused to reform. Majority of our security agencies have refused to reform. Most of our institutions are weak. And you have a lot of sabotage within the economic sector. You know, the purchasing power of the average Nigerian, is very weak. And you can see the reason why many Nigerians were happy about the president falling yesterday, and which is very sad. I don't know why anyone would be happy or rejoice over the president falling, and it distracts the whole nation from the idea of Democracy Day, which is to hold government accountable at all levels, review human rights situation of the country, review developmental strides of the country, review social and political strides that we have experienced in the last 25 years. And that's why personally I was not moved by the theatrics. Knowing President Ahmed Tinubu for who he is, he might have even staged the fall just to distract Nigerians. Because we saw that during the campaign, he was shaking all over the place. But immediately after the campaign, he became very well. So I don't know why Nigerians are being distracted instead of focusing on the issues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, interesting point you have there. But I also want you to talk about, protests. Because I saw that you did speak about June 12th protests, that were, supposed to happen across the country. Tell us about that. Why did you want a protest? And, were there people who came out, to protest yesterday across the nation? Were you also maybe disappointed with the turnout?
Yes, indeed, I was disappointed with the turnout. And the turnout is related to the threat issued by the security agencies, especially the DSS and the police. They have no business or right telling Nigerians when to protest or how to protest. They should face the internal security mechanisms, challenges that we are currently facing in the country. A situation in the country where people can barely travel around the country without being abducted, where bandits are all over the place, where bandits are killing security agencies, criminal gangs are abducting people on a daily basis. Instead of them to focus on that, they get busy and they tend to be agitated when people talk about protest. Protest is an inalienable right enshrined in the Constitution, and that was why many of us felt we should lend our voice, and we actually came out yesterday in solidarity with Nigerians who are disillusioned and dissatisfied with the economic situation in the country. Why wouldn't Nigerians be angry with the government or the president or mock the president over his fall when under this president a bottle of Fanta or Coke has moved from 100 naira to 400 naira in just the space of 1 year? Dollar moved from 450 to about 1,600. Fuel moved from 178 naira to about 700, depending on where you are buying from now in the country. A basket of tomato moved from 15,000 to about 19,000 to now almost around 150,000. A sack of pepper from 10,000 to almost about 120-something thousand now. Then bag of beans, which moved from around 28 to 29,000 to almost about 90,000 now. And the list goes on. Bag of sugar from 16,500 to 78,000. You know, bag of rice from about 23 to 30,000 is now almost 90,000. You know, a carton of noodles, which used to be around 4,500 naira, you know, is around 17,500 now. You know, a kilo of Titus fish, you know, which was around 1.5, is now 5,500. One derica of gari that used to be the food of the common man, you know, moved from 200 naira to about 800 naira. So the Nigerians are angry, and these are the indices. Anybody telling the president about what IMF, World Bank says is being economical with the truth. Yeah, but we are also not getting our economic policies right in the country.
Mr. Adeyanju,
we're having a lot of policy somersaults.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You know, so those are the challenges, sir.
Yeah, I mean, but I was just going to mention, you know, that he got, you know, a very massive portrait yesterday, which shows that there definitely are people who, you know, celebrate him and understand or believe that he's doing very well. And so why isn't that, you know, the general mood across the nation? There might be increment in food prices, but, you know, there are people who believe that the president is leading the nation in the right direction. And that, of course, you know, maybe necessitated the portrait that he got yesterday.
Yeah, indeed, very laughable. Yesterday was Democracy Day. Shouldn't the portrait have been about Chief MKO Abiola? Why are sycophants hell-bent on burying this government? You know, there's practically nothing to celebrate. Anyone that says that there's something to celebrate in this country is being economical with the truth as well, like I said earlier. The indices of even funds generation in this government are very slim. You find a situation where crude oil theft, you know, is at the highest level under the last 1 year. If not for the private security in the Niger Delta, you know, we will have been producing less than 500,000 barrels per day now. You know, we and a group of lawyers had written a petition about the activities of the Navy in stealing crude oil with saboteurs, economic saboteurs in the country. You know, will the chief of naval staff say he's not aware of all that is going on? It is even the civil defense and the army that try to help the private security people, you know, in arresting those or preventing crude oil theft. And while I'm not about the NSA, he knows all these things happening. Then they, at every turn, they try to increase tariff, import tariff with custom, which is also indirectly affecting the economy. This is a nation that does not produce anything. We import even toothpick, and every fortnight we're increasing import duty in the country, and you want to strengthen the naira. And the CBN is also using money that we don't have to defend the naira. You know, so these are the issues. Why will anybody celebrate a president that all these indices have rolled out and price inflation, you know, does not favor the economy of the nation? So why is the president being celebrated with a portrait?
Mr. Adeyanju, what would your response be to people who say that the reality that we're having is probably almost something we couldn't have avoided, regardless of which of the candidates got into power? And they say this because when people talk about the fact that food inflation is at over 40%, and you know, we're talking of the current inflation rate, they link all of that back to the president's utterance when he said subsidy is gone, as well as his unification of the naira, maybe subsequent other policies. But the main two culprits would be the fuel subsidy removal and the unification of the exchange market, or the parallel market, and the unification of the market, I beg your pardon. Now, there are people who say that the other candidates, whilst campaigning, also shared the same sentiments, that when they got into office, they were not going to renew or continue the payment of fuel subsidy. So these people say that regardless of who got into power, this might have been an inevitable end. What would your response be to that?
I will agree with them to a certain degree, because the truth of the matter is that Peter Obi, Atiku Abubakar, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they are the same people. They practically preached the same message during the campaign. They were going to remove subsidy. Subsidy is the only thing that Nigerians benefit from the government, because the government at almost the local government, state levels, and the federal level are non-existent. So and every nation in the world provides subsidy for his citizens. So I don't know this idea of blackmailing the masses to say, oh, the masses must not be entitled to subsidy. But we are subsidizing Tinubu. We saw his convoy the other day, 80-something cars. Which subsidy can be more than that? We are subsidizing the National Assembly. The principal officers of the National Assembly alone, they have almost 2,000 aides that they employ. Why do we need that kind of waste in Nigeria? We are subsidizing the politicians. You take subsidy money and you give to my governor, Ododo. What do you want him to do with the money? He's going to divert the money, or you give it to any governor in Nigeria. So why don't you give the subsidy to the people? Okay, the so-called subsidy that President Tinubu said he has saved in the last 1 year, where is it now? Has it not been looted? And now, unfortunately, they are even paying more for fuel subsidy now after the removal. What a paradox indeed. What a paradox. So additionally, it's important to note that these guys are just interested in bad governance. Because if not, how do you justify a situation where you remove subsidy? You say you already know that the economy is bad when you took over. You remove subsidy. You already know that immediately you remove subsidy, it's going to lead to inflation. And we are struggling to drive down inflation. And we claim that we helped Dangote build the refinery. So why do we need to remove subsidy if we have helped Dangote to build the refinery and you claim that Port Harcourt refinery is working?
Well, I will probably come back to talking about Democracy Day and, of course, the plans of Mr. President. But I want to also ask, you don't seem to be a fan of either of the candidates. What would you have advised, before the elections in 2023, if you don't want either Peter Obi or Atiku Abubakar or Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to be in office? What options would you have preferred that Nigeria took?
Sincerely speaking, all we have been doing in the last 25 years is window dressing, where we have been recycling politicians, and we're expecting miracles. For genuine reforms to happen in Nigeria, we need leaders who will take a drastic departure from the past. And for me, left to me, I wouldn't have minded a situation where if the opposition had united against the APC. However, it appears very obvious to me that the conventional politicians cannot solve the problem of Nigeria. Because if you look at the expectation when Buhari came in 2015, and the huge disappointment that Buhari became, under his 8-year term, you discover that the conventional politician cannot solve the problem of Nigerians. We need revolutionaries to come and solve our problems. Because one of the greatest problems of Nigeria is not just corruption, is that people don't get punished for bad behavior. And the bad behavior is everywhere. In the police, in the DSS, in the army, in the economic sector, in the private sector. So until we begin to hold people accountable for any bad conduct that they do, the country will continue to decay. So for me, left to me, I would say that all Nigeria needs is a revolutionary leader. And we have seen nations that used to be like Nigeria that did it. Singapore did it. And the Singaporean example is an example that can work here.
Do you have examples of people that you maybe believe would be that leader, that revolutionary leader?
Yes, I would typically go for someone like Omoyele Sowore. Typically, why? Because I know that even if he wins, if he may not have the capacity to fix the economy, but people need to go to jail for bad behavior. And they need to be tried within the ambit of the rule of law. Because the reason why, all the former governors that have just left office, not one of them is on trial. Look at the Yaya Bello thing. He left office since when? EFCC cannot arrest Yaya Bello. It's not because we have weak institutions. It's because this set of people who are in power, they don't have the political will to do the right thing. Additionally, someone like maybe Anungozi Okonjo-Iweala, we have seen that the woman has what it takes, in terms of hygiene, even though she may not be a saint. But there's an attempt at hygiene. You know, when she was Minister of Finance, she was the one that kept saying, don't spend the money, don't spend the money, don't spend the money. Akinwumi Adesina is another person that I will want to see govern Nigeria. You know, people that attempt hygiene, you know, but unfortunately, people like that never get access to power in Nigeria. You know, it is the Tinubus of this world, the Buharis of this world that will always get power.
All right. We'll come back to talk more on that, but let's come back to the current reality of Nigeria and the trials or travails of the average Nigerian man, one of which is the NLC versus the federal government and the demand for the minimum wage. How would you say that the government has handled this, and how would you say NLC has handled this as well? Or do you think there's something should have been done different? Can we afford 250,000 naira minimum wage that the NLC is asking for, or are they being unrealistic?
Sincerely speaking, we can afford the minimum wage that NLC is asking for. Because the reason why we can afford it is because, just take a look around you. Look at how the governors live. Look at how people in National Assembly are living. Look at how Tinubu is chilling with his ministers. You know, go to the ministries. You see that all we have in the ministries, year by year, a repetition of the previous budget. And it's just a circle of corruption. You know, look at the average security man, whether he's in the police, he's in the DSS, he's in the army, he's in the Air Force, he's in the Navy. They live from hand to mouth in complete abject poverty. But look at all the political aides. What the principal officers of the National Assembly earn, combined, you know, can take care of almost 10 ministries in Nigeria. So, and that is to tell you that our problem is corruption and maladministration. You know, so the idea that, oh, Nigeria is broke. But the president drives in a convoy of 80-something cars. Nigeria is broke. The principal officers of the National Assembly have over 2,000 aides working for them with outrageous allowances. Look at the kind of lifestyle that the governors, on travels alone, there's a report that the governor spent over 8 billion in how many months? So we can actually pay. You hear some of these governors, they come on air and they say some states are earning 11,000 in reality. But go and look at the security vote of the governor. What do they do with it? Go and look at the expenditure of government house. Look at the way Yabelo was spending money in Kogi. Just looting the state dry. Looted the state dry. So our problem is not that we lack money as a nation. You know, we have the capacity to produce 3 million barrels of crude oil per day if crude oil theft is stopped in the Niger Delta. You see, the greatest problem of crude oil theft is that it is the security agencies who are in the region that are supporting crude oil theft. If not for the private security company in the Niger Delta that is helping to solve the crude oil theft. And they came on board because the conventional security had failed. But I can assure you that the Navy, the level of frustration that they face in fighting crude oil theft in the Niger Delta is unbelievable. The civil defense is more cooperative in stopping crude oil theft in the Niger Delta than the Nigerian Navy itself. So we can generate money without increasing custom tariff. Because Nigeria is abundantly blessed. Look at the level of gas waste and gas emission that we are doing in the Niger Delta. Our gas alone, if we get serious, this nation can become the Dubai of Africa. But our problem is governance. And I'm getting to a situation where I feel that the Nigerian political elite can never get leadership and governance right. You know, and I'm inclined to agree that maybe we should concession governance to the Arabs. We should invite the Arabs to come and govern us. Because when the British and the colonial masters were here, in terms of governance, we fared better. Look at majority of the road projects that we have in this country were as a result of the colonial masters reconstructed most of them. You can imagine the irony of President Tinubu going to Lagos in line with the Democracy Day celebration to commission a refurbished third mainland bridge. It wasn't as if President Tinubu built the third mainland bridge. No, he didn't build the third mainland bridge. He went to go and commission the renovating and painting of third mainland bridge. Is that not laughable? You know, in one year, go and check. In China, they build bridges like third mainland bridge in 3 weeks.
All right.
So are we saying we cannot get this thing done?
Yeah. So we can quickly wrap up this conversation. You know, I want us. My final question this morning would be back to Mr. President's the issue you had yesterday. You know, with his tripping. One of the things, or one of the ways that you reacted was saying, you know, that you hope the president is well. You wouldn't want a Vice President Shettima in office. Tell us a little bit about that. You said the idea of Shettima as VP scares me so much already. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yes,
why is that a problem for you?
You know, for me personally, the fact that Shettima is even Vice President is scary enough. You know, for me, and I have my reasons, and I'm entitled to my reason. After all, this is a democracy. Everyone has the right to his opinion. You know, whether other people share my concerns or not, you know, it doesn't really bother me. You know, but this is my feeling. I hope that the president is well. I hope he wasn't. I pray that he was acting in his usual self, because we saw him acting all throughout the campaign, where he fooled many people who thought that he was extremely sick and was shaking. But it turned out that he was only Nollywood acting. I hope that is the situation yesterday, that he intentionally fell, you know, and I hope that he's not injured.
Why would you say that the president?
The Tinubu option is.
Okay, when you're done with that, please answer why you would think that the president staged his fall.
Yeah, but this president is capable of faking the fall, because we have seen during the campaign that he was saying so many, you know, things like Bala Blue, Bolaba, but immediately after the campaign, you see he has stopped. He no longer rhymes Bala Blue. He speaks fluent English now. His hand is no longer shaking. His leg is no longer shaking. He's walking. Even after the fall yesterday, you saw, because if the fall was sincere and genuine, you know, he wouldn't have continued with the parade. He continued with the parade. He was waving. He was laughing. He was jovial. He had a dinner yesterday night. He even cracked jokes about the fall, that he was only doing Buga dance. You know, so this president is capable of acting, and it is possible that he actually acted, because we saw him acting throughout the entire campaign.
Yeah. Again,
because how can a man be so sick, and so shaky throughout the campaign, and speaking in tongues, all manner of tongues during the campaign, and all of a sudden, immediately after the campaign, after he had won, he deceived people and he won the election. He suddenly became well.
Again, why does VP Shettima scare you?
Yeah, he scares me because of what he represents and the role that he has played, you know, in his political journey, you know, in Borno. That's basically why he scares me. I pray and I wish that the president is in good health. That's why he scares me.
What do you mean? What do you mean by, you know, what he represents and what role? If you can shed more light on that.
Yes, because just like I've said, I'm entitled to my opinion. I'm entitled to be scared by VP Kashim Shettima, you know, and me being scared is a fundamental right, which I am inclined to exercise, you know, and I'll continue to be scared of him. It's only those who do not see deep that will not understand why I'm scared of VP Kashim Shettima.
All right. Deji Adeyanju, thank you very much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. We look forward to having you some other time.
The pleasure is mine.